In 2022, I sat with some senior partners from a top consulting firm here in Dubai. They were billing millions of dollars to this client, and I asked them one question. If they believe so much in this project, would they invest their own personal money into this? The moment I asked that, they said nothing. In fact, the room went blank. One of them picked up their phone and decided to ignore me. And I thought, that's one bad room, one uncomfortable silence. That was 2022. By late 2025, Saudi Arabia had quietly removed the line from its national budget. No announcement, no apology. Construction suspended. The Mukab, which was one of their big projects, also suspended. And in January 2026, the Asian Winter Games was cancelled that was supposed to happen in a city called Trojena, where I worked on a project. So, coming back to the room. That room wasn't uncomfortable. It was pretty protective. Well, at least to me. And this was not just happening in Saudi Arabia. 3 countries and 3 cities built for billions. Builders, well, they got richer, and believers were destroyed. Something is not right. Why build cities where no one will ever live? And by the end of this, you will know exactly why they build them, who gets paid, and exactly what happens to the people who get in the way. And the answer, I promise you, is not stupidity. It never was. I started following the money, and the first thing I found wasn't in Saudi Arabia. It was in China. Look at this. This guy, his name is Chen Peng. He was a folk singer in China, and in 2015, he walked into a sales office and handed over them 300,000 yuan, his entire life saving, and his parents' money and his credit cards, which was exactly half the price of an apartment that didn't exist. Well, you see, in China, no apartment also means no wife. And that's not a metaphor, it's just how the world works there. He wasn't speculating, rather, he was trying to build a life. He thought buying an apartment means getting married, starting a family, and moving on to the next phase of the life. So, what did he do? He signed a contract for an apartment that didn't exist. He paid the mortgages every month, but for some reason, the construction stopped in 2019. He was furious. He went outside and protested. For 3 days, he was detained. And for 72 days, he was surviving on potatoes to keep paying the mortgage of walls that has no windows. He in fact wrote a song about it, which got censored. So, his 300,000 yuan deposit, where did actually it go? For this, you need to understand how the world of property works. The way the property is supposed to work is that developer buys the land, builds an apartment, sells them, and gets paid in that order. But the developer who took Chen's money figured out that you can flip it. You rather sell first, show people a render, a dream on brochure, take a deposit and sometimes half the full price before a single brick is laid. Now you have their money, and instead of using it to build their apartment, you buy the next plot of land, sell that plot of land, and take more deposits, buy the next plot of land. You are not building a city, you are running a pyramid scheme. And the scheme only needs one thing to keep spinning: more new people who believe that the apartment is coming. The man running this particular scheme was called Hui Ka Yan, founder of Evergrande. At its peak, it was one of the largest property developers on the planet. And between 2017 and 2020, while 1.5 million families kept paying mortgages on apartments that weren't being built, Hui Ka Yan paid himself $4 billion in personal dividends. So, when people say that Evergrande failed, from where Hui Ka Yan was standing, nothing failed. In fact, the plan worked exactly as it was designed to work. And that's when I started looking at NEOM differently. Because I kept asking myself, was China a one-off case study, or had someone run a similar scheme before Saudi decides to spend $50 billion into a desert? And what I found literally surprised me. Before we move to the next part of the story, if you have been enjoying this content so far, consider supporting the channel by subscribing it, commenting down below your thoughts, and sharing it with someone who you think will find this fascinating. Back to the story. A Chinese developer called Country Garden looked at this strip of a coastline right on the border of Singapore. And what he saw was exactly the same as what Evergrande saw when they looked into an empty plot of land in China. So an announcement was made and a promo film was released. Forest City, $100 billion, a brand new city built on land reclaimed from the sea. And it was right next to one of the wealthiest countries on the planet, Singapore. This city was built for 700,000 people, and the Malaysian government didn't just say yes. They handed over a special economic zone rights, tax incentives, and then the right to sell directly to Chinese buyers. Because when someone walks in and offers you the biggest foreign investment your country has ever seen, what do? Today, 9,000 people live there, and this city was built for 700,000. Same plan. Country Garden sold apartments before the land was even there, before it had been reclaimed from the sea, and took the deposits. And when China capped how much money their citizens could move out of the country legally, the buyers disappeared overnight.
Chinese government controls on how much companies could borrow and how much Chinese citizens could spend on foreign property have left Forest City in disarray.
Country Garden walked away with billions in fees and deposits, and Malaysia was left with a ghost city built on reclaimed land it cannot give away. So, China, Malaysia, two governments, 2 decades, two completely different problems they each needed to solve for. But they used the same plan, same empty streets, same people walking away richer, and same believers who left behind. And the NEOM had similar energy, similar renders, and same sense that was inevitable. But something about NEOM was different. Well, Hui Kayan needed apartment buyers to trust him, a few million people. Country Garden needed Malaysian officials and Chinese investors. But Mohammed bin Salman, or commonly referred as MBS, he needed something else entirely. Well, you need to understand, he needed the entire world, governments, sovereign wealth funds, international banks, to look at an empty desert and believe that 9 million people will actually come here and will make their life and decide to live here. And I kept thinking, someone gave him that. Some serious person with a serious name put their reputation on the line and said yes. So, how did it all start? For NEOM, well, they had the money, so they bought the reputation. They went ahead and bought the best advisors money can buy and hired them to come back and convert this vision to reality. So, before you go ahead and try to deconstruct what happened to NEOM, you need to understand why NEOM happened in the first place. You have to understand that everyone, that is all the analysts in the world, estimated that oil will peak in 2030. And after that, we might see a downturn of oil. And Saudi's economy is majorly dependent on oil. So MBS took a grand vision to move away from this oil economy, and he thought NEOM is the answer. So I am sitting here with this question, that who made NEOM believable enough to spend $500 billion so that people actually move and live there? And I realized there are 2 answers, 2 completely different types of people who did it in completely different ways. That image was made by Zaha Hadid Architect. They are one of the best recognized firms when it comes to architectural design on the planet. When their name goes onto something, nobody asks if it is possible. They ask and they expect, when does this building opens up? So when they were brought in to design for NEOM, all the renderings went everywhere. Magazine covers, government presentations, investment decks across the world. And every person who saw them bought. If names like this are attached to it, it must be real. Well, without these renders, NEOM is simply a man in a desert with an idea. With them, it is a future. It is where investments will follow on, and people handed over everything they have for that kind of future. But renders alone don't move billions of dollars. For that, you need someone to run the numbers, build the population projection, model the economic returns, and write the underlying business case that tells every government, every bank that this is a viable future, so you should put your own money in. And I keep coming back to that room in 2022. Top consulting firms, according to Wall Street Journal, McKinsey alone built over $130 million a year advising NEOMs. These aren't junior analysts. Their projections were the reason that governments signed off on this audacious plan. Their models were the reason banks moved. Their credibility was the reason that ignited the flame. And without those numbers, NEOM is still just a man in a desert. With them, it is a billion-dollar infrastructure project and the future of Saudi Arabia. Chen never heard of McKinsey. He just walked into a sales office and saw a brochure and believed it. It is my belief that they somehow knew it wasn't real, yet they kept on billing it. Chen lost his savings. He got his key and he's still here. But the scheme I have been describing, it needs land. And sometimes people are already living on the land. People who look at the announcement and they don't see the future and the places where their children grew up and say, I am not leaving, irrespective of what may come. This is the story of Abdul Rahim Al-Huwaiti. He was one of those people who was against the idea of NEOM, but he had to pay a big cost so that NEOM can become some sort of reality. Let's go to Tabuk. It is one of the regions in the northern part of Saudi Arabia where the biggest cities of NEOM, that is the Line, the Trojena, etc., were being built. In 2020, the government told the village that they needed to move or leave, and most people actually left. Abdul didn't. This was his home, his family's land, where his children grew up, and he said, I am not leaving. He in fact recorded himself. In that video, he said that they will come for me, they will plant weapons, and they will fabricate charges. They will make it look like I was the criminal. He said it very calmly, like a man who already had accepted his fate. He filmed this on Sunday, and the next morning, he was found dead. Saudi authorities said weapons were found at the scene. 3 members of his tribe are on death row right now in 2026 for the same crime. Badri Bujel. He came from the other side of the world to build the line. The line didn't care for him either. Badri came from Nepal with a promise of $1,200 a month salary to work as a labor. He was a machine operator and he was supposed to work on tunnels underground. But fate may have it, he got sick on the construction site and he was diagnosed with tuberculosis. 5 days later, he died. So there were people who were not willing to move, they are dead. There are people who came to build this into a reality. They were never cared for. It doesn't just eat the believers, it also eats everyone around it. Everyone except the people at the very top who designed it. In Malaysia, the country gardens bosses, well, they are free. They're living on their second passport and living somewhere else with a fantastic life. The architects who drew the renders, well, they are sitting somewhere in the next room, building the next audacious renders for their new clients and building projects that may not become into reality. Hundreds of billions of dollars has been spent. A man was shot for refusing to leave his home, a worker buried under 2 words, and nobody has an answer for any of it. How? Because every time we shared a NEOM render, called it visionary, called it ambitious, and said that this is what future of civilization looks like, we were the fuel. This doesn't run without believers, and a lot of people believed into it. So, trying to answer the question that we started, who builds these cities where nobody lives? The answer is not fools. These are the people who understand one thing perfectly, that you don't need to build a city to extract billions from one. You just need people to believe it will become a reality. Their invoices are paid on time before a single person is moved in. So you have to understand that these ghost cities were never the product. The announcement was, the dream was, Your belief was. The gap between what was promised and what was built is not a failure. It is a business model. And I'm pretty sure that somewhere around the world, there are teams of people sitting in one room, figuring out a similar business model and similar audacious and ambitious plan for the next futuristic city. And someone like Chen will see it, will go and believe into the brochures, the sales pitch. He or she will decide to sign it and pay for it, but might end up getting hurt in long time.
黄马甲，蓝马甲，谁愿你来顺手？